telling you this because I need you to understand the rule. If you hear your name called outside at night, don't look. Don't answer. Don't even acknowledge it. I didn't listen. Now something knows I heard it. It started 3 weeks ago when I moved into my grandfather's cabin in the Cascade foothills. The place had been empty for 2 years since he died. My parents wanted to sell it, but I needed somewhere cheap and quiet to finish my thesis. The isolation seemed perfect. The cabin sits at the end of a logging road, surrounded by dense pine forest. The nearest neighbor is 4 miles down the mountain. No cell service, no internet, just me, my laptop, and the sound of wind through the trees. The first night was fine. I unpacked, organized my research, made dinner. By 10 p.m., I was exhausted from the drive and the altitude. I fell asleep easily. I woke to my name, Michael, clear, distinct, coming from outside the bedroom window. I sat up, heart already racing. The digital clock read 3:47 a.m. I stayed still, listening. The voice had sounded like my mother's, but that was impossible. She was 600 miles away. Michael, please. There it was again. Definitely her voice. The same slight rasp she got when she was tired. I threw off the covers and went to the window. The glass was cold against my palm as I pressed close, trying to see into the darkness. Nothing, just trees and shadows. "Mom," I called out. The forest went silent, completely silent. No wind, no insects, nothing. The wrongness of it made my skin crawl. I backed away from the window and grabbed my phone. No signal, of course. I thought about getting in my car and driving down the mountain, but the logging road was treacherous at night. People had died on those switchbacks. I checked every lock instead. Front door, back door, windows, all secure. I turned on every light in the cabin and sat at the kitchen table with a baseball bat across my lap until dawn. When the sun came up, I felt ridiculous. I'd probably dreamed it. The altitude, the unfamiliar place, stress from the move. That's what I told myself. I went outside to check the area beneath the bedroom window. The ground was soft from recent rain. If someone had been there, there would be footprints. There were no footprints, none at all. The dirt was smooth, undisturbed. I should have left then. That day, I drove into the nearby town of Millbrook to get supplies and ask around. The hardware store owner, a man named Dale with a gray beard and cautious eyes, helped me load firewood into my truck. "You're staying up at the Pritchard place?" he asked. "Yeah, my grandfather's cabin." Dale nodded slowly. "Your grandfather was a good man. Kept to himself mostly, especially those last few years. Did he ever mention anything strange about the property?" Dale's hands stopped moving. "Strange how?" "I don't know, just anything unusual." He studied me for a long moment. "Your grandfather had rules. Don't know if he shared them with you. But if he had rules, I'd follow them." "What kind of rules?" Dale closed the tailgate of my truck. Not my place to say. Just be careful up there, especially at night. He walked back into the store before I could ask anything else. I spent the rest of the day in town, putting off my return to the cabin. I got coffee at a diner and tried to work on my laptop. A waitress named Sarah, probably in her 60s, refilled my cup and noticed the address on my mail. Pritchard Cabin, she said quietly. You family. Grandson. She glanced around, then leaned in. My daughter used to babysit for a family up that way. Different property, but close. She stopped going up there. Why? She heard things. Voices calling her name from the woods. She was smart enough not to answer. Sarah straightened up, her professional smile returning. You need anything else, honey? What happens if you answer? But she'd already moved to another table. I returned to the cabin just before sunset. The temperature was dropping fast. I built a fire and tried to convince myself that small-town people just liked their ghost stories. Every rural area had them. It didn't mean anything. I made dinner. I worked on my thesis. I tried to establish a normal routine. At 11:30 p.m., I went to bed. At 3:47 a.m. exactly, I woke to my name again. Michael, my father's voice this time, standing somewhere outside the cabin, calling me with that exact tone he used when he wanted my attention, but wasn't angry yet. I didn't go to the window. I lay there in the dark, barely breathing. Michael, I need your help. My father had said those exact words to me 1,000 times. The inflection was perfect. The slight emphasis on need. If I hadn't known he was in Oregon right now, I would have sworn it was him. Michael, please, I'm hurt. My body wanted to respond. Every instinct screamed at me to help. But I remembered Sarah's daughter. I remembered Dale's warning. I didn't answer. The voice continued for 10 minutes, sometimes pleading, sometimes angry, always perfectly mimicking my father. Then it went quiet. I thought it was over. Then I heard footsteps on the porch. Slow, deliberate steps, walking from one end to the other. The old boards creaking under weight. Something was testing the perimeter of the cabin. I grabbed my phone and texted my parents, forgetting there was no signal. The message sat there, unsent, mocking me. The footsteps stopped at the front door. The handle turned slowly. The deadbolt held, but I watched the brass knob rotate left, then right, then left again. Michael, my mother's voice now, coming from directly outside the door. Why won't you let me in? It's cold out here. I stayed silent. Every muscle in my body was rigid. I drove all this way to see you. Don't be rude. A pause. Michael, I know you can hear me. The handle stopped turning. The footsteps resumed, moving around to the side of the cabin. I heard them pass the kitchen window, the bathroom window, circling. They stopped at my bedroom window. Tap, tap, tap. Fingernails on glass. I can see you in there, my mother mother's voice whispered, "Why are you being like this?" I wasn't near the window. I was pressed against the far wall. Whatever was out, there couldn't possibly see me. Unless it could. The tapping continued. Patient, rhythmic, tap, tap, tap. Then it spoke again, and the voice had changed. It was still my mother's voice, but wrong somehow. The cadence was off, like someone reciting words they'd memorized but didn't understand. "Come to the window, Michael." I squeezed my eyes shut. The tapping stopped. Silence filled the cabin. Minutes passed. 5, 10, 15. I didn't move until sunrise. When I finally worked up the courage to look outside, I checked every window. The ground beneath each one was smooth and undisturbed. No footprints on the porch. No marks on the doors. But there was something new. On the outside of my bedroom window, at eye level, there were 3 smudges on the glass. They looked like fingerprints. I went outside to examine them more closely. They were on the inside of the glass. I couldn't stay in the cabin after that. I packed a bag and drove down to Millbrook. I got a room at the only motel and spent the day researching my grandfather's property. At the library, I found old newspaper archives. Nothing about the cabin specifically, but there were scattered articles about the area. Missing hikers, a family that had vanished in 1987, search and rescue operations that found nothing. An obituary from 1992 caught my attention. A woman named Linda Carver, survived by her husband and son. She'd lived half a mile from my grandfather's cabin. The obituary was brief, but there was a follow-up article a week later. Local woman's death ruled suspicious. Linda Carver had been found in the woods behind her property. She'd walked out in the middle of the night, barefoot, in freezing temperatures. Her husband reported waking to find her gone. They found her body at dawn, 300 yards into the forest. The strange part, she'd been walking away from her house, but her footprints showed she'd stopped multiple times, turned around, and responded to something. The search team found places where she'd stood still for long periods, based on the depth of the prints. Her final position was near a ravine. She'd fallen, breaking her neck. The coroner noted something unusual. Her lips were badly damaged, as if she'd been talking continuously in the cold. For hours, I photographed the article and kept searching. There were others. A teenager in 1978 who'd left a camping trip and wandered into the woods, found dead from exposure. A hunter in 2003 who disappeared overnight and was never found. His truck was still parked at the trailhead, keys in the ignition, driver's door open, all within a 5-mile radius of the cabin. I found one more thing before the library closed. A handwritten note tucked into a folder of old land surveys. The handwriting was shaky, the paper yellowed. Don't trust the voices. They learn, they get better. They'll sound like anyone, say anything. They're not people. They're not ghosts. I don't know what they are, but if they call you, don't answer. Don't look. Don't acknowledge them. E.P. Edward Pritchard, my grandfather. I photographed the note and left. That night in the motel, I tried calling my parents. The signal was weak but functional. My mother answered on the third ring. "Michael, is everything okay?" I asked her the question I'd been dreading. "Mom, have you called me in the last few days?" "No, honey. You said you'd have limited reception up there. We've been waiting for you to call us. And Dad, he's right here. Do you want to talk to him?" I didn't answer right away. "Michael, you're worrying me." The voice sounded exactly like her. But after what I'd heard, how could I be sure? "What was the name of my first dog?" I asked. Silence on the line. "Honey, what's going on? Are you feeling all right? Just answer the question. You never had a dog. You were allergic. We got you fish instead. A goldfish named Captain Michael. What's happening?" I exhaled. It was really her. "Nothing, sorry. The altitude's messing with me." We talked for a few more minutes. I didn't tell her the truth. What would I say? That something was impersonating them. That the woods around Grandfather's cabin were calling to people. After we hung up, I sat on the motel bed and tried to make sense of it. Everything rational in me wanted to dismiss this as stress, isolation, maybe carbon monoxide from the fireplace. But the fingerprints on the inside of the window, my grandfather's note, the pattern of deaths. I could leave, sell the cabin, go back to my life, pretend none of this happened. But I kept thinking about what Dale had said. Your grandfather had rules. Maybe the rules were in the cabin somewhere. Maybe he'd left instructions I hadn't found yet. I drove back up the mountain the next morning. The cabin looked normal in daylight, almost welcoming. I went through it methodically, searching for anything my grandfather might have left. I checked drawers, closets, the crawl space. Nothing. Then I found the loose board. It was in the bedroom, beneath where the bed frame sat. I'd moved the bed to vacuum and noticed one floorboard was slightly raised. I pried it up with a screwdriver. Underneath was a metal box. Inside were 3 items: a journal, a map, and a revolver. My grandfather's journal was full of entries spanning decades. The early ones were normal enough. Notes about repairs, weather observations, wildlife sightings. But they changed around 1995. Heard Mary's voice tonight. Mary died in 2003. I knew it wasn't her. Didn't respond. The calling is happening more frequently. Every night now. Sometimes multiple times. It's learning my patterns. Important. They can't enter the cabin. I don't know why, but they can't cross the threshold. As long as I don't invite them, don't open the door, don't go outside, I'm safe. They mimic perfectly now. They've used my wife's voice, my daughter's voice, even my own voice calling from outside. The trick is that they always call at night. The real people don't call from the woods at night. The last entry was dated 3 days before he died. I made a mistake. I looked. After all these years of being careful, I looked out the window when it called to me. It was using Tommy's voice. My grandson. I know Tommy is safe in Portland, but I looked anyway. It saw me look. It knows now that I heard it. The rules might be different now. If you're reading this, if you're staying here, remember, don't listen. Don't look, don't answer. And if you do look, even once, leave immediately. They're patient, but once they know you're aware of them, they won't stop. The entry ended there. My grandfather had died in this cabin. Heart attack, according to the death certificate. But now, I wondered if something had frightened him to death. I opened the map. It showed the property and surrounding area. My grandfather had marked locations with red X's, dozens of them. Each one had a date. The dates went back to 1973. I realized what I was looking at. They were the places where people had been found, or where they'd disappeared. The X's formed a pattern, radiating out from a central point about a mile into the forest. My grandfather had drawn a circle around this point and written one word: source.